Welcome to Lola's Frugal Life Podcast. If you're on a mission to be more frugal with both your time and money, you're in the right place. In this podcast, we talk about topics that help enhance living a frugal lifestyle. The goal is to save time and money where we can so that we can use the rest on what matters most to us. We talk a lot about both time and money management so that we can waste as little as possible on both. We do this while also embracing a progress over perfection mindset. If that sounds good to you, then please stick around for the latest episode right after a few quick words from our sponsor. Hi everyone, welcome back to Lola's Frugal Life Podcast. Today I'm going to talk about tips for sticking to your vacation budget. So I find that the most important part of being able to stick to your vacation budget is to start with a detailed budget. And if you have not created a vacation budget previously, your first one is most likely going to have some things missed, but you'll get better with it each time you do it. What I always do is I make notes while I'm on vacation, either in like my notes app or on a little pad or whatever I happen to have available that I know I'll look at when I get back from vacation, of any things that I feel like I could have budgeted for better or I just completely missed. That way I have that for my budget file for the next trip. So each time we go on vacation, our budget is just that much better because I've improved it based on info from our past trip. Now, I know that there's some people out there that are going to think sticking to a budget on vacation is a form of deprivation. I strongly disagree with that. Some of the most stressful times in my life regarding finances have been while on vacation, spending money that I had no idea if we even had. And knowing that I would have to return after the vacation and try and figure out how to recover from what we just did. So having money set aside for vacation and a plan on how you will spend it makes such a huge difference in the way it feels to be on vacation. It takes away any of that stress and uncertainty of if you're spending more than you should be, or if you can afford this, and all those types of feelings that can be really stressful and take away from your vacation. So having a detailed budget is really going to give you the most success in being able to stick to the amount of money that you wanted to spend. So you're going to notice that many of these tips that I'm going to share are really sound like they're more focused on planning your vacation than in making sure you spend what you anticipated while on your vacation. But that's because in my experience, the best way to stick to your vacation budget is to do a lot of research and planning beforehand. If you go on vacation without a game plan, unless it's a very low cost location, you're probably going to end up spending an amount that exceeds what you had wanted to on your trip. So of course with your vacation budget, first thing you're going to want to do is decide on the amount that you want to spend on your vacation. You may already have money set aside for your vacation and you'll create a budget to fit within that amount, or you might be creating a budget to determine how much you'll need to start saving up. But regardless of how you arrive at that number of the amount of money you're comfortable spending on a vacation, it's important to have a number or at least a maximum amount, because that's going to help guide you in creating your budget and deciding what types of vacations are going to fit into your budget. So I find it easiest to have a rough idea in mind of the amount we will budget, and then I kind of start pricing everything out to arrive at our final budget number. And then I can look to see how much we already have saved and how much additional amounts, if needed, that we're going to have to save up so that we can afford the trip. So the first thing in getting a good vacation budget together is doing your research. I find that researching a destination is probably one of the most important parts of planning a vacation, and it's also so fun to do. So especially if you're going to an area known for tourism, there's going to be a big variety of activities you can do during your trip. And by doing research, you can make educated decisions on what things you would like to do on your trip and what the cost of each activity is going to be. It can sometimes be difficult to make these decisions while you're on vacation because you can end up dealing with the fear of missing out and you just want to do everything that's available to you. And you might just start doing things when they weren't your highest priority and either not being able to do other things that you would have enjoyed more or really overspending your budget. So if you take the time to research what's available ahead of time and you can read reviews, you can make your best judgment on what would be most enjoyable to you on your vacation. You don't want to end up spending a big chunk of your vacation budget while on your trip, and then discovering the next day that there's things that you would have rather done with that money. So you'll either possibly end up doing those things anyway and blowing your budget, or you might be disappointed in your choices if you wound up doing things that weren't the best fit for you and your family, but now you've used up your budget and you don't have the money left to do the other things that you would have liked to do on your trip. So of course there's no guarantee that you're going to love everything that you choose to do on your vacation, but having a plan for those things that you will do and knowing in advance how much they're going to cost is going to greatly help you stay on budget. Another thing you could do is try and find some free or low cost activities. Most vacation locations have some things that you can do that cost little to no money. That might be strolling the downtown shopping area if you're not someone that's prone to impulse spending, because that could wind up costing you. But if you're pretty in control of your spending impulses, it can be fun to just walk in a downtown area, maybe visit a local park that shows off the scenery of the location. An example of some things that we did, a few of the vacations that we had gone on were near national parks. That was kind of like the main point of why we were going to those locations. But even if not, just having an area like that can offer a lot of free things to do. Like one vacation, we went to Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. Another one, we went to Acadia National Park in Maine. And most recently, we went to Gettysburg National Military Park in Pennsylvania. And each of those national parks has had free ranger-led walks. And those were some of the highlights of our trip. They were informative and entertaining, and they allowed us to save money to put towards other things. So that's kind of just an example, but if you take the time before you go to look into free things to do in the area, you can often find some things to do that are not going to expand your budget. Another thing you could do is join a Facebook group. So the last vacation we went on was to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, and this summer we are going to Williamsburg in Virginia. And both of those locations had Facebook groups that I was able to join related to things to do in those areas. So the groups both consisted of many people that either live in the area or those that were people that were frequent visitors of the area. So those Facebook groups have been super helpful to me in doing research for things to do in the area. Just going into the group and posting a simple question like, "This is our first time visiting the area. What are some of your must-dos?" has gotten me so much good information. And it's also another good way to hear what people think about certain events, activities, or restaurants that you might be planning on. Because even though internet reviews are a great resource, they can sometimes be limited. And, I feel like people that have had a bad experience are more likely to go vent their frustration via a bad review than people that had a great experience. So sometimes it's hard to get a good read on something that you're considering if there's a limited number of reviews. So a local Facebook group can be a great resource to get feedback. And you can also often get tips on the best times to do a certain activity or times to avoid, or, kind of some of that insider information. Another thing, of course, is YouTube videos. Who doesn't love a great top 10 video? I mean, often doing a search on YouTube for best things to do in, or free things to do near, or off the beaten path in, whatever your location is, can really lead to some really great information regarding the place that you plan to take a trip to. And often those do end up being, top 10 type list format videos, which I do find fun to watch. But sometimes you'll find things to do that you never would have come up with on an internet search or going on a tourism website. So it's entertaining, and it also adds to the fun of planning for a vacation. So don't discount YouTube for the value of finding information on the place that you'd like to go, because sometimes you just find just like regular people that made some little video about their vacation and some of the best things that they did. So you can definitely really find some great things by watching some of those videos. Food is a big piece of our vacation budget. So unfortunately, with all the planning in the world, the cost of eating on vacation is an unavoidable one. And the cost for this can range anywhere from very low budget with cooking at the location you're staying at, if that's possible, to eating at an expensive restaurant for each meal. My family usually does some combination of the two. I wouldn't say expensive restaurants. We're kind of like what some consider expensive restaurants. Like, we're not eating at restaurants where, meals are $40 and up. I know some restaurants are even more than that. We're kind of in the middle range, but even with that, it's limited, and we definitely try and keep the cost down. And often when we go camping, which is a lot of what we do, I don't mind cooking some simple meals in our camper while our family's just kind of hanging out at the campground. But I do realize that the thought of cooking anything while on vacation can be very off-putting to some. So we all get to decide how we want to spend money on food on our vacation. But if we want to stick to our budgets, it's really important to have a plan for how we're going to feed ourselves each day. And if eating out includes restaurants, looking them up in advance and getting ideas on the menu prices beforehand can really help you set a good budget. It can also give you an opportunity to make a different choice that fits within your budget. There's nothing worse than sitting down at a table for a meal to see that nothing on the menu is even remotely in your price range. So researching places to eat and getting the estimated costs will help you create a realistic budget for your meals. And you don't have to stick to exactly each restaurant on a certain night, but if you have a handful of restaurants to choose from that are in your budget, you can at least choose from places that won't cause you to overspend. And then, of course, the categories to include in your budget, you want to have a detailed budget, include as much categories as you can within reason. But the main ones, of course, are going to be listing out those activities that you looked at and what's the estimated cost for each of those. And then your food. Your food is your other major category that you're going to include, as well as, of course, lodging. Those are kind of the big three, like where you're going to stay, what you're going to eat, and what you're going to do. Then you also want to make sure you include gas and travel expenses, whether that's a rental car, just driving to a location and driving around in your own vehicle if you're doing like a road trip, or possibly plane tickets, whatever transportation or gas travel expenses you might have. Of course, you want to budget for some souvenirs, and then, as with any budget, you want to have some miscellaneous / contingency dollars. It's nice to have a little bit of extra to cover those little things that usually end up popping up on vacation, even if it's just something as simple as stopping to get everyone ice cream while walking through town. You're on vacation and you want to have at least like a little bit of wiggle room, if you can, to do some of those little extra things. And then another tip is really be prepared to make cuts. Like, once you've done your research and listed out the estimated cost of your vacation, you might find that it comes to a bit more than you had planned to spend. Now, if you can afford it and you have the extra money to set aside to do that, then that's fine. That's your choice. But if you're like, well, I really don't want to spend that much on vacation, this is when you have the opportunity to make some changes to get back to the amount you had planned on spending. And doing this at home before your vacation makes it so much easier to make thoughtful decisions about what you're willing to give up. It's no fun to have to make those decisions while you're on vacation. And sometimes when you're in that vacation mode, it's much harder to make these choices. So being able to take the time to think through what is most important to you is going to allow you to have a much nicer vacation than trying to eliminate things last minute because you don't have enough funds to cover it. And then my last tip to sticking to your vacation budget is tracking your expenses. If you've done all the legwork to have a great budget for your vacation, don't allow yourself to overspend by not tracking your spending. I recommend tracking your spending at least on a daily basis. I actually use an app where I log our expenses as they occur, because for me, I just find it easier to do it in the moment rather than having to go back and recap what happened during the day. But you can also just take a few minutes at the end of the day to record your spending for the day. That way you can see where you're at in your budget. If you overdid it in the miscellaneous spending one day, it gives you the opportunity to cut back a little bit the next day. Maybe your restaurant meal cost a little bit more than you expected, so you can maybe just do pizza the next night. Whatever choices you make, updating your budget each day really allows you to see how you're tracking to your budget so that you can make adjustments along the way. Because it's really difficult to remember what we spent after some time passes. And this is especially true while on vacation because you're just out there enjoying yourself and you're not remembering that 4 hours ago you bought that extra cute beach towel that one of your kids wanted or whatever. You buy things and you're in the moment and you might not remember 2 days ago that you spent like $40 getting ice cream for the family, and now maybe you might want to skip something else to make up for that. So updating at least daily, we're less likely to forget something, and we can know how we're tracking, so we have the ability to make some adjustments and scale back a little bit if we need to. Because there's nothing worse than coming back from vacation that you had so much fun on, and then finding out that you spent way more than you thought, and now you're trying to recover financially from the situation. So keeping on top and being able to make decisions and modifications really is important. So just to summarize, planning for your vacation, as much information you can get for what the costs of the different activities are going to be, the better your budget will be, and the better you're able to make decisions on what you want to do and what you can afford to do before you're out there on the vacation. And then tracking along the way really will help you stick to your budget and help you be able to make modifications if you need to, so that you come home and feel great about your vacation and feel great that you did not overspend. So that's it for today's episode. I really hope this was helpful to you. I love talking about vacation budgeting. That's it for this week's episode. I will see you back here next week. So thank you for checking in for this podcast episode. And don't forget, you can always email me with any questions or suggestions at lolasfrugallife@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Lola's Frugal Life. And you can find a blog post for most of my episodes, and definitely all of my meal plan episodes, at lolasfrugallife.com. You can also join our private listeners group at facebook.com/groups/lolasfrugallife. And if you enjoy the show, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen from. And I would love it if you would screenshot the show and tag me on Instagram so I could see you're listening. Also, if you can please take a couple of seconds to rate and review the podcast. Those ratings and reviews are what help the show come up better in search results so that other people can find this podcast. So that will really help me in growing my audience. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day.